You know, we often think about how our choices affect the world around us, but what about the world inside us? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a pretty surprising connection, the one between cigarette smoking and the massive hidden ecosystem that's living in your gut. Let's dive right in.
It might sound a little weird to hear, but it's the absolute truth. Your body isn't just you. Think of it more like a walking, talking planet, an environment that is just teeming with life that isn't, well, technically you.
And the scale of this internal world is just mind-boggling. 100 trillion. That's roughly how many microorganisms are living inside your gut right now. The research says that's anywhere from 10 to 100 times more than your own human cells. And they're not just hanging out. They're crucial for everything from digestion to your immune system.
So if your body is this finely tuned planet, right, full of helpful little life forms, it makes you ask a really important question. What happens when some outside force, a pollutant, invades and just throws that whole balance out of whack?
Okay, so this internal world actually has a name. It's called the gut microbiome. And really understanding what that is, that's the key to this whole story.
Now, it's really important to get this. It's not just a random soup of germs. The source material for this explainer calls it a vast community, and that's the perfect word for it. It's an organized, functional part of you that helps fight off bad guys, trains your immune system, and even makes nutrients you need. It's basically your symbiotic partner for life.
This chart gives us a great snapshot of what that healthy community looks like. And even though there are thousands of species, most of them fall into just a few big groups. See those two huge slices? Firmicutes and Bacteroidetes. The research confirms that together they make up more than 90% of a healthy gut. You're going to want to remember those two names. They are the absolute titans of this world.
So we've got our balanced world run by our two titans. But now let's introduce the villain of our story, the unwelcome intruder that's about to throw everything into chaos: cigarette smoke.
When you think about cigarette smoke, your mind probably jumps to harmful chemicals. And yeah, it's got plenty of those. But the research we're looking at points to something else, something I bet you've never thought about. The cigarettes themselves actually contain a whole bunch of different bacteria, and some of them could be real troublemakers that you're introducing into your body with every single puff.
So how in the world did scientists connect that intruder to all the chaos in our internal world? Well, they pretty much had to become detectives, sifting through mountains and mountains of data to find the truth. So let's follow the clues.
The researchers behind the big review we're exploring today, they didn't just pull a few studies they liked. Nope, they cast a huge net, starting with an initial pool of 468 different scientific articles on this very topic.
This is how they whittled it all down. What you're looking at is called a Prisma flowchart. It might look a little complicated, but it's really just a visual map of their detective work. You can see how they systematically got rid of duplicates, screened every title, and tossed out hundreds of articles that didn't meet their super strict criteria until they were left with just 5 super high-quality studies for their final analysis. This is what scientific rigor really looks like.
So after all of that meticulous work, what was the smoking gun? What was the one central finding of their entire investigation? Well, it all comes down to a really dramatic microbial shift.
Hey, remember our two titans? The two groups that make up 90% of a healthy gut, Firmicutes and Bacteroides? Well, they are right at the center of this story.
And there it is, the core finding in one powerful chart. In non-smokers, you see this nice, healthy balance with a lot more Firmicutes. But now, look what happens in smokers. Whoa, the scale doesn't just tip, it completely flips over. The Firmicutes population just plummets, while the Bacteroides population skyrockets. We are talking about a complete regime change in the gut ecosystem.
And this table tells us why that change is so bad. See, it's not just about swapping one bacteria name for another. It's about changing what they do. The research shows that the little guys that are abundant in non-smokers, like Roseburia, are anti-inflammatory. They're the peacekeepers. But the species that absolutely thrive in smokers, they're pro-inflammatory. They're the agitators. So in short, smoking is actively building and feeding an inflammatory army right inside your gut.
A pro-inflammatory gut. Yeah, that sounds pretty bad, right? But what does it actually mean for your health day-to-day? Let's connect the dots from this microbial shift to the real-world health fallout.
The source paper could not be any clearer about this. They use the scientific term gut dysbiosis for this imbalance, and they state, flat out, that it's associated with harmful outcomes. This isn't some neutral change, it's a definite turn toward disease.
And those harmful outcomes are really serious. The kind of dysbiosis that smoking causes is linked to a whole list of chronic diseases. I'm talking about inflammatory bowel diseases like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, a higher risk of colorectal cancer, and even problems that go way beyond the gut, like cardiovascular disease and metabolic disorders. It's like a battle in your gut that has consequences for your entire body.
Okay, after all that pretty sobering news, there's one really critical question left. Is the damage permanent? Let's take a look at the road to recovery and see what happens when you actually quit. And there is good news here. The research shows that after a person quits smoking, their gut ecosystem does begin to heal itself. The microbiome of a former smoker starts to look a lot more like someone who never smoked at all. But, and this is a very important but, the studies also found that some of those negative changes can stick around. Some of those pro-inflammatory bacteria can remain at higher levels, which suggests that while your system can recover, some of the scars might remain.
Which really brings us to our final thought. This whole explainer was about smoking, but the principle is much bigger. Our internal worlds, these incredible, complex ecosystems, are under constant assault from our diets, our stress, our lifestyle choices. They have this amazing ability to bounce back, but they aren't invincible. And that kind of leaves us with a big question to think about. Just how resilient is your inner world?